Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen takes my credit card and gets upset when caught. After that, fire me? You're all losing your jobs. And after that, customer doesn't understand how receipt lookups work. Now Karen told me if we can get 1,000 likes on this video, she won't take anyone else's credit card for an entire week. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. And huge shout out to Coy Mills, our newest official channel member. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Become an official channel member today, and I'll give you a special shout out in our next video. Karen takes my credit card and gets upset when caught. Backstory. My husband and I have now been married for almost 18 years. My mother-in-law is the most entitled, choosing beggar I've ever known. I have many stories, so if y'all like this one, I will add more. First time posting, be nice please. Cast, we've got me, we've got hubby, and we've got mother-in-law. When my now husband and I were engaged, we had one credit card that we used for emergencies or small things. We were buying a house, getting married, so he paid it off so we would have it if needed for house. All good. Nope. Statement for the card came in and showed thousands of dollars in purchases, including Disney World tickets for 3, with all of the accoutrements, stereo system, clothes, computer and desk, several semesters of college for one of his younger brothers, and more. Hubby was mad, called credit card company, and they stated it was on his second card. He tried to explain he did not have a second card. That is when they revealed that he had signed for a second card on his application. Hint, he didn't. Apparently, Entitled Parents saw him put application in mailbox. He lived on grandparents' farm that had main house and a few trailers for family to live in. Once he left, she opened it and marked for a second card for herself and put it back in. So, prior to our engagement, hubby was paying almost all of Entitled Parents' expenses as he was the oldest of 5 and felt responsible for them. Dad divorced and stepdad left. Once we became engaged, and especially once I became pregnant, he told Entitled Parent he couldn't anymore as he had his own family to take care of now. Entitled Parent did not take this well. She took that second card and took 2 siblings to Disney World and everything else listed above. Hubby stormed into Entitled Parent's kitchen and demanded the card. Some is paraphrased as this happened a while ago, but this is mostly how it went down. Hubby, give me the credit card, now! Entitled Parent, what card are you talking about? Faked, confused expression. Hubby, the one you signed for yourself and just spent thousands on. Entitled Parent, oh, I was gonna wait until your birthday and give it to you as a present. And well, now you ruined it. She wanted more time to go shopping. I'll bet. Give it. Now. But now. Entitled Parent hands over credit card grudgingly, and hubby promptly cuts it up, making her very upset. He tells her that was supposed to help us through with the house, wedding, and pregnancy. We decided to go for the trifecta, and now we were thousands in debt, and she needed to pay us back. I don't have that kind of money. I'm your mother, and you needed to help me. Hubby, I have my own family now. We are your family. Payment, now! So Entitled Parent called in his youngest sister and youngest brother, who was developmentally delayed, to write hubby a check for $100 from each of their accounts to pay for their trip to Disney World, and gave us another $100 in loose pennies. We never got another dime. Had to wrap pennies every day for a week to return them before change machines were available, and the bank only took wrapped, signaled, and dated. Fast forward 3 years. She comes over to our tiny 2-bedroom apartment and tells hubby, what happened? You used to be so good with money. I had to get in front of him and told her to leave before she got hurt. Never saw him so angry in my life. So, that is how we ended up with $10,000 in credit card fees, including late fees. He wouldn't press charges because it was his mom. I have so many more stories too. Next we've got Fire Me? You're all losing your jobs. After uni, late 2018, I fell on rough times and was forced to move back to my hometown. I tried to transfer my job to a branch in my area, but failed. Thus, I needed to get a new job. I settled for a 20-hour-a-week job at a Bookies with a second bartending job in the evenings. The Bookies is the target for my revenge, which was entirely accidental. Involved are the following: Janelle, my manager's manager; Shay, my manager; George and Gordon, my coworkers; and Kara, a coworker at another store who is relevant later. Names changed and or redacted. I ended up working behind the counter as a customer service manager, basically a step up from a cashier. It's fancy when seen on a CV, but there's nothing really to it. I took bets, chatted with customers, helped people with machines, and for the vast majority of my shift, sat around waiting for something to do. I got on well with my coworkers, or so I thought, and had no major issues. It was 20 hours a week, about £1 more than a minimum wage job with a lot of overtime required of me and irregular shift patterns. Though I had no issue with the job, beyond how difficult it was to juggle the schedules of both of my jobs. In February of 2019, after working for the company for 6 months, I was invited to a probation hearing. It cannot be emphasized enough that it was a probation hearing in which I would have my performance reviewed and, as informed in training, was entitled to a pay raise at the end of it. I arrived that morning to a disciplinary hearing where, without even a shred of evidence, I was accused of 11 different cash discrepancies dating back to early November of 2018, shortly after I had started, which all amounted to £271, all but one of which I had never heard of before. These had apparently been reported and logged by my manager, Shay, and my coworkers, despite no one saying a word to me at all. Not a whisper in the 5 months this had apparently been occurring. I was told that it was unacceptable. A call was made to HR, and I was terminated on the spot and forced to hand over my keys and to never set foot in the store again. To my protests, I was told the decision could not be appealed and I would eventually receive written confirmation of my employment's termination in the post. I didn't let myself slump around and feel sorry for myself, so on the way home, I opened up Indeed and applied for a bunch of jobs, and before I arrived home, had an interview set up for the next week at what is my current place of work. Now, I was furious, fuming at having gone to what I thought should have been a normal probation meeting and having, effectively, been called a thief and been banned for life from a place I'd never go to anyway. But somehow, my parents were angrier and ordered me to let them know when they got into contact with me again. Almost 2 weeks later, I received an email from the company's HR which reiterated the accusations and stated again that I was terminated. My mom sat me down in the kitchen and walked me through a letter response that was 2 parts professional and 3 parts scathing, ripping into them about their unprofessional conduct, their ludicrous claims, their lack of evidence, the holes in their story, because there were quite a few, and finally, the cherry on the cake, the employment laws they had broken. Now, I didn't want much, just a nice reference, a promise that not a whisper of these accusations would turn up when my new job asked them for a reference, because by then, I'd already been offered the job. I then attached the letter to an email to fire back at their HR department. Then I added Janelle's work email, then her boss's email, and finally the holding company that owned the brand, because I wanted to make sure this was seen. A bit of background. The Bookies I worked for is a brand that is owned by an international company. Their name, behind the scenes, is slapped on everything, and they pretty much dictate everything we did. I'm not sure if holding company is the correct term, but I'll stick to that for now. Anyway, I sent this email with a 48-hour window for a response. I received a reply the next day from the same email that my demands were being met. I smirked victoriously and moved on with my life, happy to wash my hands with the entire ordeal. However, I'd set off a chain reaction that I wouldn't know about until 3 months later. 3 months on, I'd settled into my new job, a call center position with double the hours and well over double the pay. I'd gone through training and was settling into my new position when I see a new set of trainees settling in near my team. Among them was Gordon, one of my coworkers from the bookies. I was stunned. Gordon had been at the bookies for 6 years when I joined. He was well liked, good at his job, and a favorite of the managers. There was no way he'd been fired. Though I didn't really want to talk to him, as I was of the impression that he, George, and my manager had likely set me up, I did want to know what happened. Luckily, on seeing me in the break room one shift, he sought me out and told me everything. Apparently, my email had been read by the higher-ups in the holding company and had caused a lot of scrutiny to fall onto the bookies in our town, of which there were 3 in our area that Janelle was responsible for, 2 in my town and a 3rd in a neighboring one. Someone in HR passed a message down to the area manager, Janelle's boss, claiming they wanted things investigated and they wanted results yesterday, causing him to drop everything and descend on our little town with the panic and aggression of a man whose superiors were watching his every breath. He went to Janelle wanting to know why he hadn't been made aware previously that I was apparently stealing money, why I had been given keys to the shop and shifts on my own when allegations of that nature were attributed to me, and why I hadn't been put under investigation. Turns out, Janelle had, in fact, put in my employee file that I was under investigation, but had never actually gone through with any of the official procedures for monitoring and investigating me. Thus, she had fired me for the accused crime without looking into it at all, falsely claiming otherwise. Thus, the area manager took the dates and amounts of the cash discrepancies, confirmed that they had been reported on those days without my knowledge in Shay's own logbook of the shop's cash, and sent that information onto our security team to investigate. Another little detail is that the CCTV for every shop in the brand is outsourced to a private security company who monitors each shop remotely and has access to all the cameras and video. As was procedure, they looked into the dates mentioned to see if I'd been doing anything. I know I wasn't, and nothing was ever said to me. But they did find something. Turns out money was going missing from the shop, but surprise, surprise, it wasn't me, but George and Shay. They not only set me up, for reasons I will never know, but were also falsifying numbers and cash checks on the system to hide it. One thing Shay was caught doing was deliberately shortchanging customers by taking portions of their winnings without them even knowing it. Bear in mind, a lot of our customers were elderly men and women. Gordon claims that he once opened the shop after I and Shay had closed the night before and noticed a cash difference, but had been told not to say anything to me as I was under investigation and it could compromise it. He did apologize and I let it go. Needless to say, George and Shay were fired. But it doesn't end there. Our team was small. Including me, there were a total of 4 people working at the store. As they hadn't been able to hire anyone to replace me, George and Shay's termination meant Gordon was the only employee at the busiest shop in our area. Even if they'd been able to get other colleagues from the other 2 shops to help out, it wouldn't have been enough to keep the shop open and manage the amount of customers. So they closed the location down until they could get the staff to run it. It was at that point that Gordon handed in his resignation and applied for his job at my work, meaning they had no one. On top of that, Gordon's girlfriend worked in the same shop as Janelle, and she relayed that she was rarely at their store, in the other town, for the next few weeks before the area manager reported she was fired as well. No reason given to her. I was later issued an apology for everything by the area manager and informed she, Janelle, was no longer with the company in an email sometime later. But somehow, it doesn't end there. With the store I worked at closed, this one being on the high street and where most people prefer to go, the other location in town was the much smaller location in the suburbs, the one where Kara worked, alone. She suddenly received an influx of customers into her tiny store space and absolutely no support from other staff or upper management. Thus, for her own mental health, having already been overworked and underpaid, running an entire store by herself, she quit, meaning that location had to be closed down too. All of this at the worst possible time, March, when the Cheltenham Festival was occurring, which is a huge moneymaker in that industry, even in a small town like ours. An opportunity the 3 other bookies on the high street reaped the benefits of instead of my old place, as the former customers went to them instead. As it currently stands, just over a year later, both shops remain closed and I'm currently entering a job in cybersecurity, the training for which I paid for with my current job. Thank you for firing me, jerks. You did me a favor. Next we've got, customer doesn't understand how receipt lookups work. I work behind the return desk at a decently large retail store. I deal with every type of customer imaginable, the kind ones, the rude ones, and the especially rude ones. It was 2 to 3 weeks ago when one of these especially rude customers rolled in with a return. Multiple returns, rather. Right off the bat, I knew I was in for a treat. I was in the process of reticketing items previously returned on my desk, leaving little to no space for any more items on said desk. That's when this customer comes and slams her bag of returns right on top of everything I was working on, including our expensive machines. Machines remained okay, by the way. No greeting said, just returns. I muster up the tightest smile possible and slowly remove my own work elsewhere and begin opening a computer for the return. I then ask the basics. Do you have a receipt? Nope. What about the form of payment used to purchase these items? Nope. I then tell her that I'll begin a receipt lookup in hopes of finding proof of these purchases so she can receive the full amount back for them. I start asking for her phone number in hopes that it's linked to our reward system, which would make the search easier. This is where she loses her patience. Just as I'm about to ask when these items were purchased, she goes off. Why don't you just scan the items? Scanning them should bring up my receipt. I tell her no, that's not how purchases from our store work. She rolls her eyes at me and laughs. You just don't want to do it. Every other store does it for me. Stop making this difficult. I explain as calmly as possible that it's not possible to pull up a receipt just from scanning a barcode from the items bought. We need a specified date when bought and either a phone number, email, or form of payment used in said purchase tagged along with an item ID. Not just the item ID alone. That's literally useless. She gives me attitude for another few minutes as I go back months and months in an attempt to find her receipt to these items. But alas, she had to make yet another comment about my work. This shouldn't be as difficult as you're making it out to be, she angrily stated as she tried tilting the computer monitor so she could get a look at what I was doing from behind the desk. Not allowed. I quickly stopped her movements, wanting to protect our property, and snapped. It becomes difficult when you come in here empty-handed and impatient. She didn't say much after that. 5 more minutes of desperately searching, she gave up. She grabbed her unreturned items and thanked me for nothing. I smiled and told her to have a great rest of her day, to which she replied, "Forget you," to me and left. A coworker was quick to fill me in on previous encounters she had with that same customer. Apparently, she's known for being the worst of the worst. Thrives off of it even. Today, Sunday, God's Day, this devil of a woman returned, with more returns. My coworkers and I were already pretty busy as is, but I made it a priority to take care of this red-horned woman despite it. I make room on our desk for her and beckon her up. She has attitude right off the bat. I'm here to return items, and hopefully this time you'll actually return them instead of BSing me like my last visit. I grinned and told her I remembered her and hoped she was doing well. She ignored it and beckoned to her items. I searched the bag she provided for a receipt, and what do you know? She didn't have one. Nor did she have the form of payment used to purchase them with. Cue déjà vu. Despite the previous interaction, she still couldn't handle the questions I had next. Dates, emails, phone number, anything to help, she still didn't get it. Still didn't appreciate my efforts to find her receipt. I never have issues with this stuff, not from any other stores. This specific store is beyond terrible with its customer service. You should be ashamed with how you've treated me. To her lack of knowledge, a manager had been watching the interaction from the start as she was familiar with the customer herself. My manager swooped in after that statement, sweetened the customer up a bit, and somehow got a brand new phone number out of her, one that this customer never provided me with, in which helped me find the receipt just like that. Her items matched with the receipt found, and she was credited a whopping $195 to her card. You would think she would be happy that the issue was solved, but unfortunately, no. She began asking my manager why our systems were so flawed and why it takes so many steps for a receipt to be found. My manager explained our policies regarding the subject, and the devil woman left without another word spoken. I never even get rude with customers like I got with this woman, even ones that talk to me with serious attitude. This one crossed a ridiculous amount of lines, from nearly ruining our printing machines, touching our property without permission, showing impatience, and being overall rude to me despite my long efforts to retrieve her receipt. I felt defeated. Returns without any proof of a purchase are hard, beyond hard sometimes, but we like to go the extra mile in an attempt to find them for customers. Nobody wants to go home without their money back. We know this. We try to help, we really do. I wish more people could sense this. Older lady I always help in the grocery store thought I worked there. I do my shopping the exact same time every week in a large grocery store. There's a little old woman who usually does her shopping at around the same time. She has some mobility issues and doesn't buy much, so after a few times of seeing her having to flag down help every time she wanted something from a shelf above the shoulder level, I approached her and asked if she'd like a shopping companion. It took me under 10 minutes to get everything on her list, and she was very gracious and grateful, even offered me a few dollars, which I didn't accept, of course. I didn't give this a second thought. I wasn't raised to question whether you take 10 minutes to help an old woman in her grocery store or not. It's just what you do. So next week, when I saw her again, I asked if she'd like someone to shop with her, and she was again very grateful for the help. It became our usual routine that whenever I spotted her, usually every other week or two, I'd give her a hand. One week, I didn't do my shopping at the usual time. I worked a little late, and when I came in, there was a big fuss at the customer service desk involving my shopping friend and a young man. I started to go over to be sure everything was all right and hear the young man say, "What do you mean no one with that name works here?" She had a name tag on. My mom saw the name, right, Ma? And she said she did. And the customer service kid is saying he really doesn't have anyone by that name who works there. The young man is going, "What do you mean? Did you fire her? She was here last week, right, Ma?" And I realize it's my name and the potential source of confusion. I go in for shopping immediately after work, and my work uniform is a maroon shirt and the khaki pants with a name tag. The grocery store I shop at has white shirts, any kind of pants you want, and a maroon apron with the store's logo, so a little similar. I go over and she gleefully cries, "There you are! I want you to meet my son!" And he started telling me how grateful he is I was taking time out of my work to personally help his mom shop, and now that he's in town, he wanted to say thanks in person and give me some money, or at least put in a good word with my manager at the store. So could I point them out so he could speak with them? I explained the confusion, and they were both so touched. It was one of the most poignant moments of my life, and definitely the most meaningful I've ever had in a supermarket. If you saw a little old lady trying to reach something in a supermarket, but you could reach it, would you help her? Please let me know. And shoutouts to our Regenerals of the day: Galaxy Fire, Bobby Sue, Paula Bird, and the Charizard Flame. Become tomorrow's Regenerals by leaving as many reads as you can in the comments below, and please listen to my playlist every night when you go to sleep.